It's a very vulnerable time for organizations when they have a vacancy at the very top. And they go to a lot of time and effort in order to make sure that they're finding somebody that's an exact fit for that role. They make sure they have the experience, they have the expertise, they have checked their references, they have interviewing panels, and finally one day they feel like, wow, we have really found a superstar that we think is going to work great for us, and they bring them in the door. And then they have a myth that they operate from, and that is that they've spent so much money in the hiring process for recruiting firms and finding the right person that they think that this superstar is now going to be able to hit the ground running. But unfortunately, that is a myth. And it's a myth for these reasons. It's not that they fell down in any way in finding the right person. But no matter who they found, that person cannot understand what the situation, they cannot come in with an understanding of what the situation is that they're going to be in, what the situation is for the organization. They don't come in with an understanding of the culture, which is the primary driver of people's decisions and actions. And they don't come in with knowing anything about the people or who they need to be in relationship with, who the formal and the informal leaders are. And they don't know the people on their executive team. And this team is the very heart and soul and engine of any organization. And the organization also has another myth. They think that being able to hit the ground running means that this person's going to be able to deliver valuable results almost immediately. And why is this? Because people have been having their fingers drumming on the table, waiting for this person to arrive. A lot of things have been on hold. And so they think, finally, our new executive is here. They're going to be able to take over now and keep things moving. So the executive, faced with this dilemma of not really understanding the situation, often borrows success strategies they had in their last job. They know exactly how to enlarge the customer base. They know exactly how to make things more efficient. And so they start overlaying those strategies from the past into their new role, and they don't work. In fact, it's very unfortunate, but 64% of the people hired from the outside are no longer viable in their jobs at 18 months. And this has a huge economic impact to the organization, costing them millions of dollars when you consider the fact that they may have already made costly mistakes because they didn't know what the situation was, or they now have a vacancy at the top again, and they have to go through the whole hiring process, and it's very disruptive to not only the organization but to the executive team as well, very disorienting. And so I have devised a process called Strategic Start that supports the new executive in really hitting the ground running. We have a time-proven approach that really works to get that new executive up to speed as quickly as possible. In fact, this approach is being used right now for NASA to bring on their new executives, as well as a number of other organizations. And we have been using this approach and evolving it and making it even better for about 20 years. And so now we feel very confident that this is an approach that does a couple of things. It shortens the time that it takes for the new executive to really learn the situation they're in. In fact, we condense about 18 months of learning into the first 3 weeks by having a very focused, concentrated process that brings to bear a 360 perspective of the situation they're in. And why is this important? Because it helps them to be grounded and make decisions that are going to fit the situation they're in and not import success strategies from their past job. The second thing that it does is it helps them to develop the critical relationships that they need to have with their executive team, with their boss, and the key stakeholders. And so one of the most important things that it does is it helps them acclimate to the culture, because the culture has all these invisible rules that they don't know. And so to decode these rules, they are going to get briefed by their team, by their boss, by their peers, so that they can really understand the culture, as well as have their own personal cultural ambassador that will decode the culture for them real time. I think one of the most important things that this process does is it surfaces expectations, the expectations of their boss, their team, and their peers, because these unsaid expectations is really what is being held as what this person is accountable to achieve, even though they've never been told what these things are. And so by surfacing the expectations and getting agreements about them, it creates a foundation for trust that would normally not exist. This approach, this unique approach, is very customized to each individual that comes into the door. We meet them actually at the door on the first day, and we are staying with them as their partners through that whole first vulnerable 100 days, so that they can really create the foundation for their success and the early wins that they will be judged by in the very early stages of their career. And the risk that a company takes when they don't support their new executives when they come in the door, the small cost of this program is minuscule in terms of the savings that they generate from making sure that their top executives are well supported. And there's another payoff too, because the executive, when they first come in the door, is so impressed that a company would greet them in such a warm and welcoming and supportive manner that they feel so confident that they've made the right choice in selecting this job. It saves the company also a lot of money, because when there's such a high level of turnover at the executive ranks, this causes a disruption. I can say from all of the executive onboardings that we have done over the last 20 years, that the one that I feel the most proud about is that we leave the executive in a place where they've built the foundation for the success, and we've also left the organization in a place where they can thrive.